Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to LinkedIn Tuesday, July 7th, 2026. I hope you had a safe and happy July 4th weekend. Please note this event will be recorded. The recording will be on the Career USA YouTube channel for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, you give consent for your name and picture to appear. Please note that any comments you put in the Zoom chat window will not appear in the recording. For everybody who's on Zoom, this is a great opportunity to give us your information. Put in your name, the position you're looking for. Give us 2 or 3 target companies that we may be able to help you with. Put in your email, your LinkedIn address, city and phone if you'd like. And if you have companies that you can offer connections to other people, please go ahead and list those. Save the chat at the end of this meeting. That way you can connect with everybody else who's on the call today. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeff Morris. Back in 2008, I started a website called careerdfw.org, a website to help those unemployed in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. In 2012, I launched careerusa.org to help those around the United States. I have written a book called What I've Learned About Your Job Search That You May Not Know. It is available on Amazon. If you see me in person, I always have copies with me. Since 2007, I've been leading and facilitating the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. That group's been around since the late 1990s. I took it over in 2007 when the prior leader landed a job. And I'll tell you about our upcoming program this Friday at the end of this session. And since 2017, I've been a member of the practice interview team, also known as the PIT crew. Don't wait until you have an interview to schedule an interview. Schedule one now. They like to say practice early, practice often. You can watch other people being interviewed and you can be interviewed yourself. Just go to dallaspitcrew.com for more information. Well, we have 4 outstanding speakers who talk about LinkedIn. They rotate through on a monthly basis. They all talk about LinkedIn from a little bit different point of view. Today, our speaker is Kurt VandeMotter. He's a retained search executive at Link Executive Search. He's trying to find you out there. So today he's going to talk about how he does that. Kurt, thank you for being with us today.
Well, thank you, Jeff. Happy Tuesday. And 4th of July is behind us now. The USA is out of the rank. Mexico's out of the rank. So, gosh, what do we got to do the rest of the month? We still have a lot of
Canada's gone too. Yeah.
we still have a whole lot of soccer to watch or football to watch, and I don't know who I'm going to cheer for. Anybody got any suggestions?
Here are some things you can try.
Oh my gosh, my phone picked up what I was just listening to. Siri wanted to give me some suggestions. Thank you. I'm not interested, Siri. Well, listen,
Polly says we should watch baseball.
there you go. Well, that's a good option. Well, listen, everybody, welcome. I'm honored that you're all here. This is not, as I try to remind everybody, this meeting is not about me. It's about you. So the thing that I want you all to do right now is to start thinking about the question that you've always wanted to ask a recruiter, or the question you've always wanted to ask somebody that was hiring, or somebody that was, doing what I do one way or another. And if you've got that question, I want you to load it in the question now. Don't wait until we get to that subject, because Jeff is my wingman, and he'll help me identify when those questions come in. And if you've got a question, I want to make sure that we get your questions answered. So just a little bit about me, and then I'll get on to the meat of the whole presentation. I don't have a presentation where I'm going to show you a bunch of slides. I kind of just fly by the seat of our pants to make sure that we cover the subjects that are most important to everybody on this call. So, but a little bit about me is I came out of corporate America, not as an HR director, but as a hiring manager with Pepsi, Dr. Pepper 7 Up, and then AT&T Wireless. And that took up about the first 25 years of my career. And then I went out and did some startup technology stuff. And for the next 8 or 9 years, I worked for a couple of different types of industries and companies. And the last corporate job I had was with a company called Intervoice, an interactive voice response company. And I was brought on to help with the telco division. And so my boss called me on the 4th of July and told me that she had eliminated my job and I could stay on vacation as long as I wanted to. When I got back, I just needed to get to HR and negotiate my severance package. I share that story with you because that's when I decided to pivot. Some of you may be at that point in your career, and I think that it's important that you take the blinders off. But some of you might be at that point in your career where you've always wanted to do X, but you've never had the time to do Z. So if there's something that you've got a passion to do, something you've always wanted to do, a business you've always wanted to start, or you've got a real passion for needlepoint and you're really good at it, now is a time that you should pursue those in conjunction of looking for a regular job. So my pivot was I made a call when I was on vacation to only one person, and it was a guy that I worked for, and he owned a recruiting company in Galena, Illinois. Excuse me. And I don't know if any of you know where Galena is, but it's up in the corner of where Illinois, Wisconsin, and uh, Iowa meet. It's a beautiful part of the country. Population is 4,000, 5,000 in the summer and 1,000 in the winter. I had a son that was a senior in high school and a daughter that was a freshman in high school. So you can see where this is going. And I commuted to Chicago for 4 years. So I was not going to go back to Galena and take over this business, but it gave me enough pause that I thought about maybe that's what I should do. So fast forward 16 years ago, I started this business as an executive search person. So um, I didn't know when I left Intervoice whether I was going to, buy a black car and drive people to the airport or open a convenience store or start some other business of consulting or doing something. But I knew I wasn't going back to corporate America, and that was my pivot, was to go into the search business. And so I've really never looked back. So again, I'm here to answer your questions. If any of you've got questions about that chapter in your life, or you've got questions about what we're going to dig into as far as how recruiters find you on LinkedIn, and that's what you're ultimately here to do, is to that's what the conversation is about today, is to learn about how do we as recruiters find you on LinkedIn, and what can you do to help accelerate your networking in order to get on the radar of recruiters faster. Okay. So Jeff, the first place to start, unless we've got any questions out there, is I'm gonna open it up by asking it, kind of providing a challenge. Something just popped on my radar here, and it kind of made me think about it. Um, the one thing that I am looking for on this call, I'll put a seed in everybody's pocket. I'm working for a consumer packaged goods company in Dallas, Texas, and I'm looking for a shopper marketing, omni-channel kind of brand strategy person. If any of you are in marketing, then you may be familiar with those terms. But another ask would be, maybe somebody on this call, maybe somebody has a contact with a buyer at Walmart up in Bentonville. That would be an amazing introduction for me, because they know who all the best shopper omni-channel marketing people are. I've just got to find a buyer at headquarters that will take my call and help me solve that problem. So if anybody's got anything in that category, my contact information is everywhere that I speak. So I'm easy to reach and I'm available at any time. Now let's move on to recruiters. So Jeff, I think a natural place to start is the slide where we talk about the three different kinds of recruiters. So when you're out searching for your career, you're going to come across three different kinds of recruiters. One is going to be an in-house recruiter. And these in-house recruiters are people that work for large companies. A smaller organization can't afford to have somebody internally to recruit. but a large organization like an AT&T can afford to have recruiters, and they probably have 500 recruiters. Maybe that's an exaggeration. They probably have 250 recruiters that are working in different segments. So there may be 5 recruiters that are working on customer service. There's recruiters that are working on on the retail store. They've got hundreds of stores around the country, if not thousands. There are recruiters that are working on the executive level roles. There are recruiters that are working on all kinds of things. So, but they're internal recruiters. These recruiters have generally between 30 and 40 jobs that they're trying to fill at one time on their plate. So they're very, very busy. And they know exactly what they're looking for. So they rely very heavily on applicant tracking systems in order to help sort the candidates that are the best candidates for their organization based on an initial swag. So why is that really important? It's really important from a candidate's perspective that if you are interviewing for a job and you think your resume is a perfect fit and everything's a perfect match, what I want you to consider doing before you send it in is to take that job description and take your resume and throw it into a chat GPT or the likes of an AI and ask it to revise your resume to reflect the needs of this particular position. Okay. Now, I don't want you can't lie on your resume, but there's many times that candidates oversee things that are on their resume that are really important to the company, and they don't put those in the critical order and so forth. So therefore, when they get to the AI or they get to that ATS, that applicant tracking system, that's when they get kicked out because they've either got this or that, or they don't have this or that, and they may have those things, but they didn't modify their resume before they sent it in. So AI provides you a really easy way to make those modifications, and I encourage you to do so. I encourage you to make those modifications, and I'm confident that you will increase your your number of interviews quickly. Okay, so that's in-house recruiters. We're going to get to how do you communicate with these people in a minute. Outside contingent recruiters. So you're a company that's got 100 employees and you need a new vice president of marketing. You could go do that work on your own using LinkedIn, or what you might do is you might go find a contingent recruiter, or you maybe know 2 or 3 contingent recruiters. You sign a contract. Nobody gets paid anything. Those recruiters don't get paid anything unless they bring the candidate that it fills the job. Okay, so a company can easily work with 3 or 4, 5 contingent firms to fill the same job. And as I said, the only one that gets paid is the one that fills the role. These people work really fast, okay, because they are up against and they know they're competing generally against many other recruiters, and they want to make sure that their candidates get selected first or get hired first. So they're gonna use their database. They're going to go in and present candidates very, very quickly in order to make sure that they can close that search. Now, not in all cases do all companies hire 3 or 4 contingent recruiters. They can hire 1, but these people work a little bit differently than what I do, which is a retained search consultant. I'm exclusive, so there's nobody else that's competing against me. I listen to the needs of the customer a little bit differently than maybe a contingent recruiter does. I met with a company in Dallas recently, a family business that may be looking for a new CFO, and I was explaining to the owner, the nuances of making sure that this hire is done absolutely perfectly well, because they did it once and they didn't do it well. And there's animosity on the team, in the team, and in the executive team if that position is filled with the wrong executive. So there's got to be a real sense of listening that an executive recruiter goes through and asks a lot of questions about what they've done and how they've overcome these objections, because they can't have a failure a second time. That would be a disaster. Okay. So that's a little bit different. Those are the difference. Now, how do we communicate with these different recruiters? In-house recruiters, if you're talking to an in-house recruiter, you generally only have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 minutes with these people, okay? And you better be spot on as far as what they're looking for as you answer the questions. So if they ask a question, you've got to be very precise in answering that question. You don't have a lot of time to go back and do any research or muddle around. Oh, I wish I would have said this and so forth. They're going to move very quickly because they know what they're looking for. They're not going to try to jam a square peg into a round hole. Outside contingent recruiters, the same thing. They move very, very quickly. They know exactly what they're looking for. They're going to present candidates with their resumes quickly. They're probably not going to spend maybe 15 or 20 minutes with you on the phone because, again, they're trying to get to the finish line very quickly. And then outside retained recruiters, we want to just make sure that we're asking them all the questions about why is this role open and how is the success of this person going to be defined in the first 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, year. You're going to ask a lot different questions. You're going to have a lot longer conversation with this person. In all cases, though, what I want you to remember is that we do not want to ever, I say, vomit on the recruiter. When a recruiter calls, do not go into a 20-minute or what sometimes maybe only 8 or 9, 10 minutes, but that's a long time if you don't know the person you're talking to and you think you're answering the question that they've got. Make sure that you only give them your elevator pitch and that you wait to share the stories about what you've done and how you've done it after you've gotten information from that company or from that recruiter about what exactly it is that they're looking for. Biggest mistake that candidates make. I mean, I have had to interrupt candidates and listen to stories that would that I'd tell at the dining room table for holidays, but I would never tell it with a group here. But um, it's a big mistake. So make sure you don't do that. Get ready, be ready to ask questions and be interactive, especially with your working with a recruiter because you're not talking to the company yet. The whole objective in working with a recruiter is to get the next interview, which is with the company. Okay. And so don't oversell yourself on the first shot. Make sure you're asking good questions and you're signing yourself up for the right opportunity. Jeff, any questions?
Yeah, Melissa asked, we're using AI on the front end to optimize our resumes and applications. What are employers truly using on the back end to evaluate candidates?
So they're using their applicant tracking system, and that's the ATS that they're predominantly using. As a recruiter myself, I use very little AI to tear apart a resume or to, try to prioritize a candidate over another candidate. Those are conversations that I have with candidates. That's not done using AI. Where I do use AI occasionally is in job description creation. Um, and I'm almost embarrassed to say, but I have done it a number of times, and it's so effective that it's such a time saver, and so I've done that probably 5 or 6 times, but that's where I use AI the most, and then in letter writing, but not necessarily in my day-to-day communication with candidates. Lots of that you'll see is done through LinkedIn, and I've got specified templates that have been created, and because we're moving very quickly. Does that help with that question?
Thank you.
Good. Okay, so let's go to let's see. I've got to pull up. I've got to pull up a screen here. Hold on a second. Well, while we find that, where is that silly thing? Um, Hold on a second, guys. Give me there's that piece, but that's not what we're looking for. Where the heck it is? There she goes. Okay. Now let's go to where's Google? Anybody see Google here? Just Google.
No, we still see your picture. You haven't
Okay.
shared the screen yet.
Yeah. Okay. Good. You'd be impressed with what I'm doing behind the scenes here. Not. Any other questions that while I'm toying around with trying to get us into
Yeah, Doris asked, what category are you looking for a buyer? Said I may know some people having worked in the marketing and merchandising for 13 years.
Yeah, at this point, I talk to anybody because this company's in the produce business, and so it could be any kind of buyer, anybody that knows and can navigate that that organization because um, it's a complicated
It is.
organization.
Maybe we can talk offline, Kurt, because I
That
don't want to give up any proprietary type stuff that
Yep,
could
no,
get
that'd be great.
us both in trouble.
That'd be
So yeah.
awesome.
Okay, thank you.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I gave her your contact info, so
Beautiful.
she'll be able
Okay,
to get
good.
that to you.
Okay. Okay. So now let's see where you're here. Now, if I go here and go to share screen, and we go here, share. Okay. Can everybody see that now?
It's loading. Here we go. Yep, we see it now.
Okay. I appreciate everybody's patience. Hopefully, it'll be worth the wait. So what I want to do is actually give you kind of visibility into what recruiters now. Let me share with you this product is recruit. This is Recruiter Lite. So it's not. There's another advanced product that's called LinkedIn Recruiter. The difference is this product costs $160 a month, and Recruiter costs I think it's $1,800 a month. So there's a big difference in the cost. And because business has slowed down in the recruiting industry, I've backed off and I'm only using the light product. But it looks very, very, very similar to what you would see if you were using the advanced product. Okay. So what we try to do here on this call is I'm going to go through and just put in some samples of if I was looking for somebody in a particular job in a particular geographic area, and then we're going to look at profiles and I'll show you what I see and what I'm looking at and how some of these candidates can certainly improve what they do. But to give you an idea, first of all, a company gives me a job title. I think it's important in this particular case that let's say that I put in, let's just say, I'm going to stay away from the jobs that I'm working on right now because um, let's do the CFO in Dallas just for grins, okay? So chief, even though I haven't started financial officer, okay? But see here the drop downs where now it gives me all the other that person they want him to be the chief financial officer, but today that person could be the vice president of finance, or they could be the senior vice president of operations, or they could be a senior vice, nah, probably not there. They could be uh, how about this one right here? Senior vice president. Okay. So we've got four titles. What I'm getting to right here is the fact that this is where, again, you've got to make sure that you're using LinkedIn to make sure that you populate that section that's about you. It's the section under your picture. It's 28 or 2,700, 2,600 characters that you can use. And that's where you're going to want to put the lists of the way that your job title is thought of in the industry that you're searching for today. Okay. Does that make sense? So, because the titles that companies use in certain industries are different across the board. Okay. So, this is one tool that we use to look for titles. Okay. So, let's just say that's a title I'm looking for. Okay. Then I come down and I think I can find this person in Dallas. Okay. So, I'm going to stick to Dallas, Texas. I don't think I'm going to have to go regionally because I think that there's going to be a big enough talent pool. I can list in here skills and assessment. I can, if in the conversation with the owner of the company, if the owner had identified companies that they had admired, I'll give you an example. Years ago, I used to do recruiting for Mission Foods. And one of the things that their executive team had identified were target companies that they really admired: Hershey's, Kellogg, Legos. Those are three that I can think of right off the top. Those are brands that they like those brands. They like the leadership. They like the creative thinking. So there was a lot that they liked about those brands. So if the company shares those brands with me, that those are brands that they admire, then that would be a place I could put in the companies. Some cases they want a particular uh, protege. They maybe want somebody out of an Ivy League school or something. Doesn't happen. I think in 17 years of doing this, I don't think I've used schools once, maybe. Um, this is where you're at graduation. So if you have questions about whether recruiters are recruiting for age or not, again, this is something that I do not use, very, 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 very randomly. But you can see how it works is it just gives me years and I can slide it back to the year I want that person to have graduated and so forth. And then I can update it. Okay. I can put the industries. If there are certain industries that are attractive to this organization, I can do that. And then if there's keywords, so as I write the job description, if there are keywords that come out of what this company is doing and what they're looking for, then I could use the keywords there. I can identify network relationships, so I can see if there are people that are one connection, two connections, or third. I can come over here on this other side again. Now I'm over on this side, and I can literally go zip codes. Okay, if I am working in a very metropolitan area, take Los Angeles as an example, I might put in a zip code or two because I know that I'm not going to get somebody to drive from, um, you know, just north of San Diego to up to say Disney World area. Okay. I just know that people aren't going to travel that far. So I can use zip codes. I can use languages. I can use who joined recently, years of experience, military, companies, recruiting activity. I can, if I think I know the person, I can put in their first name or their last name, seniority, company sizes, job functions, projects. You can see a whole lot that I can search for, right? But what I want to share with you is that as a recruiter, what we want to do is we want to start big and we want to start a funnel that's pretty big, okay? And then we'll wean it down and I'll show you why. So we're just going to go search and you'll see exactly what I'm going to get here. So this is a pretty good sample right now. There's 400 or 582 people that are open to work, 18 that are interested in my brand, 88 that have company connections. Okay. So there's a pretty big talent pool here that I could start looking at. So just for grins, because I'm using LinkedIn Lite, this is an area I cannot see. Okay. I don't have access to see who's open to work. Okay. But what a recruiter does is, you've heard before that we have the ability to look at resumes very quickly. You've probably heard that the average recruiter spends maybe 30 seconds on a LinkedIn profile or on a resume. Okay. Sometimes they fold the resume in half and they show that, we only look at the top half of a resume. Well, in these days, we're using LinkedIn, and we're not spending much time on these LinkedIn profiles. So we pull it up real quick, and I see this he's a strategic finance executive, and this, one of the things this company's interested in is somebody that's going to have some M&A experience. Okay. So he's in the environmental business services today. Waterloo Solutions, don't know who they are, but I can click right there. It takes me to their site. Now I can note that they're a nanotechnology research in Austin, Texas, material sciences, innovating a revolutionary diamond. Wow. Okay, so that's pretty that's pretty advanced for what I'm looking for. So I'm going to close that down. I'm going to come back here. I'm back to the site again. He was with White Star Asset Management. So not sure that he's 100% the candidate, but I want to build a relationship with this guy. So I don't have his email contact. Okay. Um, I can build a project and put him into that project, but then I have the ability to go in and send him a message. So I don't have a message here, but you can see where I've got messages for other businesses. This was a land development role that I was working on. So it was a template that was built that I can go in, new operations manager position, and then I personalize it by saying, Nicole, would you consider a conversation about a role in land development, a little bit about the role? I give her my contact information, and I hope that based on what I've given her in this in-mail, I've given her enough message or enough information that Nicole would want to talk to me. Now, this is going to Barry, so I would change this, but I'm not going to send it to Barry because Barry's not for the land development role. So you get how I can customize it, and we can send in-mails very, very, very quickly. Okay. The reason that that's important for you to see and understand is that first and foremost is that candidates, only 9% of candidates today reply to in-mails. Okay. 9%. That's very, very low. Now, thankfully, my numbers are a little bit higher than that. I'm in the 20s, but that's still not very good. Okay. So, what I want to emphasize is that if you are a candidate that is actively looking for a new opportunity, this is the area that I want you to use this summary section to put in all the titles of the different jobs that you've had. Put your contact information in here, your email address and your phone number. Okay. You're at a point right now in your career where you want to be reached. So give the recruiter a reason to pick up the phone and call you directly. Okay. Has anybody ever played the game when you were a kid, the head of the class? It was a board game, and you rolled the dice, and you got to move around the board. Well, you move to the head of the class when you put or give us your contact information in that summary section, because I can pick up the phone or I can send you an email directly, send you the job description, and ask if this is something that you'd be interested in talking about. And would you call me tomorrow? Let's schedule a call. Let's have a conversation as soon as possible. Okay. So that is an absolute game changer. But this is where putting other words that describe what you do in here is where recruiters are going to pick up. If we were to go in and modify, if I were to narrow this search down a little bit more, and I would have put M&A, or I would have put a specific industry, or I'd put something else in there, this is where in the summary section we may pick up your background, and you may move to the head of class. And then if you do, and you have, like Jackie does, and it only took me literally 3 seconds to see that Jackie has her contact information in there. Right there is her email address. Okay. So now I can send her an email immediately with that job description. Her email address is in here in her header as well because I must be connected to. I'm second connected to her, but she's provided that information for recruiters and for people that are looking at her profile. Okay, so this is a good example, but still, Jackie could improve on that real estate by putting more into her summary section. She's done a good job of describing the companies that she worked for and given us good detail on the different bullets of what she's accomplished. Okay. Good background, solid background, good experience. She goes all the way back to 1986, where she she graduated from the University of Missouri. She's not hiding anything in 1983. So good example for those of you that have questions about how much information do I put in here. One of the things that I try to tell candidates is that if age is an issue, I'm going to find out how old you are one way or another. Okay, because at some point, even though you might have a really young picture put on your LinkedIn profile, because you colored your hair, you did something, or it's a picture that you took 10 years ago, and you look really young, and you speak very young, and you sound like somewhat of a hipster, and you're cool. I'm gonna have a Zoom call, and then if you don't look like that picture, that's when I'm gonna start asking questions about, well, wait a minute, when was that picture taken? Because my client is likely going to go to your LinkedIn profile and look at your picture before they interview you, just because they want to see what you look like. So I'm going to find out regardless. So my point is, don't try to hide anything. If you're trying to hide how old you are and you don't want to put all the details that go back to 1983, then leave it off. Leave it at 1990 if you want, 95 if you want to. But again, as a recruiter, as a hiring manager, as somebody that's trying to hire the best available athlete for this organization, if age is an issue, I'm going to find out how old you are. Okay. Now, I would also tell you that for those of you that are questioning age, there's many times that I will that I'm looking for somebody that is older. Okay, I filled a CEO search for a company down in South Texas that was in the hardware business. They owned hardware stores. Okay, um, and the four siblings were all going to retire on one day. But they didn't want somebody that was a young and up and comer because they had a third generation son that was 40 years old, 42 years old, and that had worked at Exxon and worked his way up through the ranks at Exxon. But it was time to raise the kids, and they didn't want to raise them in Houston. They wanted to raise them outside in the country. But they didn't want to give the company to that young man yet. So we wanted somebody that's going to be there for 5 years, 6 years, that can help mentor, coach, help this executive build into that role. And for that, certainly he was at the end of his career at 61 years old. So the thought of having an opportunity to nest at the end, to work for 5 years, and then we built an incentive in there to make sure that he stays for 5 years. That if he stays for the full 5 years, then we pay him out in an extra $1 million. So there's a lot of creativity that can go into equations. And again, maybe you think that you're old and you can't find a job. There are companies that want you and need you. And if you're old and you're really not old, there are companies that need you and there are jobs, and it's just a matter of timing. I'm going to shut up for a minute. Jeff, any questions?
No, nothing new.
Nothing new. Okay. Well, then I'm just going to keep on talking. So we looked at Jackie. Let's just go on to the next candidate and see what we can find out. Here's Cedric. Okay. Strong background. Nice use of keywords. See how he's giving us all these bullets. Okay. I like that, but he's got a lot more space. And what has he not done? He's not given us his email address or his phone number. And I knew that right off the bat when I looked at it. So there's nowhere in here that I've got that information. If I want to talk to Cedric, there's only one thing I can do, and that's to send him an email. Okay. And we have to buy those emails. And then when candidates don't reply to you, it even becomes a bigger issue. So he's the chief operating officer with Laguna Tools. That could be interesting for this role. Unified Power, various companies. He was in the power business, Treasure, Siemens. So he's a technology guy. And I'm some degree I'm looking here to see, he's had a number of jobs, okay, but he's given us so much information as far as what he's done. And he was actually at Laguna Tools. He's been there for almost 3 years now. So almost 3 years. Before that, he was there for a year. There he was 2 years, there 4 years, there a year. So there is some question about his jumping around, but I would want to have that conversation with Cedric and give him the opportunity to give me the information directly of why he left. Because, as many of you know, there's a very simple explanation about the company was the company shut down. The company moved my job and 25 others offshore to the just downsizing to any hundreds of other things that can go on. So as a recruiter, that's maybe one of the differences between me as a retained search and a contingent, is that I want to hear it from the mouth of the candidate. I want to hear from them what's going on to try to figure out whether or not this is something that is going to be a bigger concern or not. Okay. Here's Mark. Okay. Pretty good use of his summary. No email address or phone number. Okay. He's came out of the industrial sector, Briggs Industrial, Lennox. So he was an equipment guy, HVAC equipment. That could be interesting for this organization. Supply One, Aramark Healthcare, not bad. Aramark, Ernst and Young. Okay. And so what I haven't shared with you is that for this particular role, they've got a gentleman that's in a controller position, and they're very, very concerned. They don't want to lose. They can't afford to lose this guy because he's been there for 20 years, but he's not ready to be the CFO. And it's not just as simple as taking a test and he'd be ready. He needs some training, he needs some coaching, he needs some mentoring. So again, for this role, for this organization, and I don't know for sure, but maybe a better candidate is going to be somebody that's 60 years old, again, that can help coach and mentor the end of their career, get this person ready so that in 5 years, the person that's the controller can go in and be the CFO and hire his direct report as a director, and the company wins, the organization wins. I'm all about trying to convince companies to figure out how they can promote from within, making sure that if there's somebody that is coachable, it's a 2 or 3 year plan, that we're hiring somebody that can bring those skills to the table. Because that sends such a positive message to the organization. And it demonstrates an organization that people want to work for, because they are promoting, they're invoking leadership, and they're making good decisions.
Kurt, I want to point out that for everybody who's watching, you'll notice that highlighted says Chief Executive Officer. That was one of the key words of the job title. So any job titles or keywords that Kurt would have put in, they will show up highlighted to make it easy to stand out for Kurt to look at somebody's profile.
Yep. Good point. Yep. Any other questions so far?
Melissa asked, based on your experience, what are the top themes or skills companies are prioritizing when hiring today?
Well, that's a really good question. It's a pretty general question, so it's hard for me to be specific with that. But I will tell you that I think that companies are hiring people that have demonstrated experience with AI, meaning that they're familiar with it. They know how to use it in their job. They know where and how they can plug it in to help find ways to maximize time and save time. I think that companies are looking for people that are, and this is just maybe old school, but that that are really good leaders. There's been a lot of layoffs. There's a lot of companies have done a lot of downsizing, and so I think that good old generic leadership skills is something that companies are looking for and listening for as they talk to candidates. Um, I think that it is um, somebody that can demonstrate flexibility. And when I say demonstrate flexibility, what I'm really what I really want people to think about is I mean demonstrate flexibility is I want you to, Jeff talked about earlier on the practice interview team. And I really want to encourage everybody on this call to take advantage of that and to consider, no matter where you're at in your search, whether it's Jeff said, practice often, practice frequent and often, or ever how you mentioned that. But the fact is that so important. I was on the phone with a candidate about a month ago, and this executive had about 20 years of experience. They were in the shopper marketing category. They worked for a national brand. They were in Chicago. They loved the brand that I was working for, and they were willing to move to Dallas. But they had a lot more agency experience than the company really had an appetite for, meaning that they had worked for an agency and not for the actual CPG company themselves. But as I talked to this candidate, after 20 minutes, I had to stop him and I said, I'm sorry, but you've got to find a coach. Okay. You've got to find a coach and somebody that can help you interview because you are an awful communicator. I think that every other word was like, and he was so insecure in what he was trying to communicate, and he couldn't do it and capture his thoughts in a quick and easy way fashion for somebody to understand. So I really want you all to take that very, very seriously, that we think we communicate well, but not until you practice it, not until you put into that fry pan, do you really realize that you can use some help. The one piece that I try to coach all of the candidates that I work for and with, and as a recruiter, that's one of the things that I do. I don't know if every recruiter does. Excuse me. I think that they do. I'm pretty sure that most recruiters do, but I spend a good portion of 15 or 20 minutes. If we get to the point that they're going to go in for an interview or they're going to have a phone interview, any interview they have, to do prep time. And in that prep time, one of the things that I try to coach candidates in, and I've only got 15 or 20 minutes to prep them, so I can't teach them a lifetime of interviewing skills. But one of the best interviewing skills that I can give you as a coach right now for everybody to take away is to learn how to do behavioral interviewing. Now, typical behavioral interviewing is something that years ago, when I was at Dr. Pepper 7-Up, when I was at AT&T, they would take us away for a week. They'd put us in a classroom and they would teach us how to do this. They'd make us train and coach, and we'd have to practice on each other and so forth. And because we were all hiring managers. The bottom line is behavioral interviewing, it gets the person that's doing the interview. So if I'm the person interviewing you as a candidate, to ask questions that are behavioral questions that get you as a candidate to talk about what did you do, how did you do it, what would you have done differently, what was the outcome, okay? So they're going to ask you questions that are behavioral questions. Tell me a time that you had to finish a project early, you were over budget, the boss was yelling, and you had somebody on the team that wasn't playing nice in the sandbox, okay? So what I've just taught you is you're probably looking yourself in the mirror and going, what is he talking about? This is ridiculous. Okay. Well, I want you to all be prepared to be behavioral interviewer repliers. Okay. So no matter what question the interviewer asks you, I want you to answer in a behavioral fashion. They ask you, what's your favorite color? Let me tell you about blue. Blue's my favorite color because my mother had the most beautiful blue eyes in the world. I love the color blue ink, and I've probably got a large percentage of my wardrobe is in blue. Now, I'm kidding you guys. That's crazy. You wouldn't do that in an interview, but the point is when they asked me what my favorite color was, I shared with them a lot more about different elements of who I am and what I've done, and they get a better picture of what Kurt VandeMotter's done. So if you're interviewing for, let's take it to real life now, if you're interviewing for a job that is a manager of customer service, they are likely going to ask you questions about having to overcome difficult customer questions and concerns. They want to make sure that you're a good leader and that you manage teams well. They want to know how you communicate with the rest of your organization. How do you manage above and below you? They probably want to know some information about how you came up through the ranks and why would you be a good fit for this role at this point in your career. So you know what kind of questions they and what they want to try to get at because it's all highlighted in the job description. And that's what I want you to go into the interview with is answers for those questions so that you can when they ask you a question about, did you ever manage people? It's a pretty open-ended question, right? And you could answer, yeah, I have. I managed 100 people, 5 direct reports and 100 direct and indirect. But how about if you answer that question by saying, I have managed a lot of people in my career. And one of the things that you want to know about my background is that when it comes to management skills, I receive very high marks from my employees. I've got 5 direct reports, and they indirectly manage another 100 people. And we get together on a regular basis to try to learn about what we can do to make their jobs easier. One of the things that I do is I make sure every month I walk around and I try to greet as many of those 100 people as I can, shake their hands, thank them for their service, thank them for what they're doing, and listen to see if there's anything that I can do to make their job easier. Okay. What answer was better? I managed 5 people in direct and 100 people indirect, or the answer I just gave you? That's a behavioral interview question. So if you can train yourself to answer behavioral to every question that a recruiter or an interviewer or a company asks you, you will move to the head of the class. You will become a better candidate. You will get more opportunities quickly, and I guarantee it. Any questions?
Yeah, Kelly's got her hand raised. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Kurt. How much emphasis should you place in your behavioral interview answers to the most recent position or past experience?
Great question. Anything that you can do that's current is great. But, when you're answering a behavioral question, you're going back and thinking about a story that's relevant. And it could have been 5 years ago. But that same problem could have happened tomorrow or the next day. So, I think as long as it's relevant, I think that it's appropriate, even if it's 5 or 6 years old, to tell stories about things that you did. Now, be careful too, okay? And I'm gonna share a story that I kind of walked into a ant trap years ago. I was interviewing with a company called Perrier in California, and the business that I was interviewing was the business that was where they came out and refilled the fountains in your office. So they brought in the big tanks, and you put those on a stand, and you came by and you filled up your water glass and so forth. And I was doing a drive around for a couple of hours with one of the salespeople, trying to learn their business, trying to figure out whether or not this was a senior role that I wanted to accept and so forth. And I came back and I was meeting with the CEO of the company. And when I was riding the route with the guy, I said, I've just got a silly question. I said, I don't know, maybe you've already tested this, but I said, you sell cups, but the cups that you sell are only, they're only 4 ounces. I said, so you're making revenue on cups. That's great. But have you ever thought about selling 12-ounce cups? Because when they fill up a 12-ounce cup, that water goes down a lot faster. It goes down a lot faster. They need more refills. Okay. You're going to sell more water. Makes sense, right? And I said, in the beverage business at Pepsi, we're trying to sell bigger and bigger and bigger. A 32-ounce glass is good because that's more carbonated beverages that we can fill in that cup. And we know you're going to drink it. You're going to come back and fill it up again. So anyway, the kid was like flabbergasted. He goes, "That is brilliant. I love that idea. It's your idea. Take it. It's yours. You own it." So we went back to the office and I told the CEO this story. And he said, "So how do you think you made that kid feel?" And I said, "Wow, I don't know." I said, "I gave him the idea." I said, we talked about it and then I shared with him what we were doing at Pepsi." I said, "He was pretty jazzed about the idea and he was planning on coming to talk to his boss and you about maybe ways that they could implement the business." I said, "He owns it." He says, "Well, I think you probably intimidated the shit out of the guy. And for that, we're not going to hire you." So be careful about knowing too much, but tell stories and be ready to tell stories. I think it'll make a major difference. Jeff, is that something that you talk about in practice interview and the pit crew?
Yeah, the pit crew actually does real interviews. You'll be interviewed by a panel of 3 people, and they'll research the company and ask you questions related to what they have found out about the company and about what your job description is. So
Okay.
we don't really get into the learning part. If people want to, more help with the learning how to answer, I would check out. We've got a 13-part interview session, 13 interview sessions that we recorded back during COVID that go into detail all about different areas of your job search and how to answer behavioral questions, how to analyze a job description, all that's out there. So if somebody needs help with a certain topic, they can go back and watch one of those videos.
Got it. Okay. Okay, no. Well, let's wrap up here, Jeff. I'm going to go a minute or two overboard. You know where I'm going with this. The last thing that I want you to do. So we talked about LinkedIn. I've shared with you how important it is to put your contact information, use those words in that summary section. You can continue to update your LinkedIn profile every day if you want to make changes to it. When you update your LinkedIn profile, it doesn't send a note to everybody that says, "Hey, Michelle just updated her resume," or "Doris just updated her LinkedIn profile." So don't worry about that. It's not going to let everybody know. You can continue to make changes all the time. Come to these seminars; they're great. The last piece of advice that I want to give everybody is it's called the prayer letter. And I want to emphasize how important your network is. Okay. Your network is your net worth. Your network is your net worth. Okay. And so if you're not leveraging that network throughout your job search, you are missing one of the largest and most important components. So here's what I want you to do. Your homework is number one is to make a list of everybody that you've worked for, people that you've called on, people that have called on you, people that you've met on airplanes, people you go to church, people that your kids play soccer with, people that you went to college with. Make a list first. Excel spreadsheet, name, email address, phone number. You can have a comment section if you want. That's the very first exercise. That might take you a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. You can continue to add on to it afterwards. Second piece of this exercise is I want you to activate that network. So you've got that network or that list. Now I want you to literally pick up the phone and call every one of those people. If you get their voicemail, it sounds like this. "Hey, John, Kurt here. Just want to give you a quick update. I'm actively looking for a new opportunity. And some of the target companies that I'm looking at include," and you give them 3 companies. "I'd really love to connect with you. If you've got a few minutes, call me back at this number. How's the family? I look forward to catching up. And how's everything going over at Pepsi? Have a blessed day. Talk to you soon." Excuse me. That's the voicemail. If you get them live, it's the same conversation. You're just giving them an update that you're actively looking. You're not asking them for a job. You're not asking them to find you a job. You're just giving them an update, and you're giving them a couple of target companies. You also want to make sure that you got the right email address. You know you got the right phone number because you're on the phone with them, but now let's make sure that we got the right email address as well. The next part of this exercise, you just called 200 people. It's now August 1st, and now what do? Kurt said your network is your net worth, but how do you keep that network active? The next exercise is what we call the prayer letter. Many of you have gotten it before. It says, read this prayer 10 times, send it to 10 people in the next 10 minutes, or you're going to die and go to hell. So in the job world, it says this. You take all those email addresses, and they all go into a BCC. No twos, no CCs. All BCCs, 150, 200 of them if you want. Then in the subject, it says, great people know great people. And in the body, it says this. I continue to look for new opportunities. And some of the target companies that I look at are looking at include, and you give them 3 companies. If you or anybody in your network has contacts with these or companies like these, I would greatly appreciate an introduction. Feel free to forward this note on to anybody in your network. And most importantly, if there's anything I can do for you or a friend, don't hesitate to call anytime. I'll be back in touch in 30 days. Have a blessed day. Kurt. Okay? That's what the prayer letter says. Now, can you imagine the first of every month you're communicating with 250 people in your network? Okay? 250 people are going to open up their email on the first of every month, and they're going to realize that you continue to look for a new opportunity. Your job search will accelerate if you do the prayer letter. Now, many of you are not in sales and marketing, and you're going to feel really uncomfortable using this tool. I understand that. If you're really uncomfortable with it and you like it, but you want to talk to a friend, ask somebody that if you had a booger and you were getting ready to make a big presentation, that they tell you, go get a Kleenex. But I'm not leading you down a path of disaster here. This is a way to get your network and keep your network working for you every month, because the first phone call wasn't enough. 15 minutes after they hung up, their wife called, their daughter called, their son called, he's in jail. Grandma called, she's had a flat tire and she's on the highway. So many things happen to people so much during the day. There's so many things going on that we forget. So that's why the prayer letter is so important to send out every month on a regular basis to keep your network up to date and ask for help. Any questions, Jeff?
No, but I did put a copy of the prayer letter is in the chat window. So
Great.
if you click on it, you can download it to your computer, and you'll have it there.
Awesome. Jeff, I appreciate you and all you do. You make life a lot easier for so many people, and so I spread the word about your mission here every day, and I know that everybody on this call will do the same. Keep up the good
Right.
work.
Thank you very, very much. Kurt, thank you very much for your presentation and your time out of your schedule to talk with job seekers, because that's, the opinions you can offer are really valuable for everybody. Coming up next week, how to use LinkedIn for job hunting, strategies to get results. Locke Alderson will be with us. He's a career consultant. He's been hiring. He's been a recruiter for 40 plus years. So he'll talk about how he thinks you need to be using LinkedIn for job hunting. So join us next Tuesday for that. Whoop. Here we go. The practice interview team, as we talked about before, it is meeting in person. For those of you in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, come watch a practice interview. You will learn a lot just by watching other people being interviewed, because you'll go and say, oh, that was just great the way they said that. Oh, I better never say it that way. And the nice thing about the interviews is after the 45-minute interview, they have a 15 to 20-minute follow-up session where they'll go and talk about how they thought the person did and the good and the bad and what they could do better in an actual interview. So the practice interview team meets in person on the first, second, third, and fifth Wednesdays of the month. They're up at Christ United Methodist Church at Coit and Parker in Plano, Texas. If you're outside the DFW area, you can join them on the fourth Wednesday of the month when they are online only. Every interview they do every week, they schedule 3 different interviews. So you can go pick and choose which interview you want to go watch. So it's really a valuable experience. In fact, I just found out today they were trying to find the history of when did this start. The Practice Interview team has been around since 2009. So it was started by somebody from my Friday North Dallas group who said, "Oh, I have an interview come up. Can you come help me?" And they said, "Well, how about Wednesdays at 1 o'clock?" So that following Wednesday, 3 or 4 people showed up, and then it was 5 or 6 or 7 and 8. Pre-COVID, we were having 50 to 70 people show up for the interviews. Nowadays, it's back around 40s and stuff. So please feel free to join us. It's a great experience. This Friday at the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group, we'll be doing an open forum. We didn't meet last Friday, and first Friday of every month, we always do open forum where we'll talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. What questions do you have about your job search? You can offer your opinion on other people's questions. So come join us. If you can be there in person, great. We're also at Christ United Methodist Church at Coit and Parker in Plano, or you can join us on Zoom. You're welcome to join the Career DFW or Career USA LinkedIn groups. We've got over 16,000 members in the Career DFW group. I started it when I started the website. You do not need to live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area to join that group. This is just a way for you to expand your connections and know when you join a group, you can then directly message anybody else in that group. So if they're a second or third degree connection and you can't reach out to them, look and see what the groups they're in, join their group, and then you'll be able to directly connect with that person. This session has been recorded. It will be on the Career USA YouTube channel. Please subscribe to the channel. We've got over 1,000 people who are subscribed, and every time we post a new video, they get an email letting them know that there's a new video out there. On the Career USA YouTube channel, click on playlist. Every video I post goes into one of 7 different playlists. We've got over 760 videos when I looked a couple days ago. So, and then when you click at the very bottom where it says view full playlist, up will come a list of everything in that particular subject, and you can go back and watch any of the videos you want at your convenience. If you're not receiving emails about our workshops and you'd like to join the Career USA mailing list, you can just scan this QR code and send a blank email. You don't have to put anything in the body, or just send a blank email to Career USA, the + subscribe at groups.io. You will only get, I'm only putting out 3 emails a week. All the emails will have a link so you can get the link to join those groups that are meeting. And if the PIC crew is meeting in person, you'll get a 4th email to say how you can join that group when they're online only. Please note, Career DFW, we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. All of our speakers are volunteering their time. I'm a volunteer. Everything that I've done over the last 17 years has just been to help you land your next great opportunity. So thank you very much for joining us today, everybody. Have a great week, and hope to see you at the PIC crew or at the North Dallas group on Friday. Have a great week.